Howdy, Zuby. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. As someone who was born in the UK and raised in Saudi Arabia, you've been all over the world. You've also been traveling here in the United States recently. So I have kind of two questions. It's kind of the same question, though. What is one thing America does well politically, and what is one thing that we as a nation could do better?
It's a great question. So you mean specifically within the political realm?
Yes, sir.
Sure thing. I think one thing that America does phenomenally well politically is having a constitution and a Bill of Rights. So I think a lot of people in the US don't realize that that's not a norm. Most nations don't have those kind of documents. Now, I understand, of course, in US history, it took a long time for those words to truly be taken seriously and to be applied to all US citizens. And for those concepts of equality, freedom, individual rights, civil liberties to really come into manifestation in the real world. But simply by having that, I think that is so extraordinarily powerful. As far as I'm aware, the USA was the first country that was essentially founded upon ideas, not simply founded upon geographical proximity or ethnicity, anything like that. It's really a country that's founded upon ideas and ideals, and I think that in itself is incredibly important. In terms of something that is not done well politically, ooh, options. I think one thing that always blows my mind here is, and I understand why this is, but I think it's crazy that in a country of 330 million people, there are only two main political parties. I think that's crazy. How that binary is broken, I don't really know. It's essentially some type of political monopoly, but I think it's an issue having only two options. Number one, because I think it prevents either party from performing as well as they potentially could, because they only really have one other challenger. But I think also it's a problem because it makes things appear more binary than they are. When I talk and when I give speeches and even when I write, I actually do my best to avoid using the terms the left and the right, because humanity and political views are so much more nuanced. They're so much more nuanced than that. The first time I was on Joe Rogan, I made a joke, but only a half joke, that we're living in a time where politics is binary and gender is a spectrum. Right? And the truth is, there's a huge diversity of ideas out there. Yes, of course, people have their political leanings, and it's useful at times to be able to put a label on that. However, it's so much more nuanced and complicated than that. And I think by its nature, it can make people seem or feel like they're diametrically opposed to each other, or that they're always in opposition, even when that's not truly the case, because people think that they just need to pick a side, pick a tribe, and then fall totally down the line on everything. And I think that's an issue, which is something that's polarizing the country.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for being here. You mentioned tonight that all people have to believe in something. What impact does the global trend towards atheism, the normalization of atheism, and the people who are still believing in traditional religions become less observant and less religious every generation and every year? What impact does that have on these 20 points that you've observed about humanity and then the world in general?
Wow, big question. Very big question right there. I'm going to answer as honestly as possible, because this is something I think about a lot. Actually, you know, I'm going to float an idea out here, and this might sound kind of weird, but I think it's relevant to especially the past couple years. I have a theory, because I'm going to put my idea out there, I'm going to test it. I have a theory that religious people offer a degree of herd immunity to a society. I don't think that for an individual to be moral and to be a good person or anything like that, that they have to be religious. That's clearly not the case. However, I think by having a significant percentage of people who are grounded in that sense of objective morality and belief in God and belief in certain traditions, I think it helps to keep society sane. Because in the absence of it, I think a nation, I think a collective can run on the fumes of those ideas for a while, but over time they become unmoored from where those ideas even came from. So if you look at a country like the USA, you look at a country like the UK, even if you meet someone who is not necessarily religious, if you are, you still will share a lot of the values because the culture and society and the general moral beliefs and principles in a country like the USA or the UK are founded on Christian values, right? And however, if you unmoor those, then over the course of a long, long period of time, I believe that everything just becomes an opinion. Everything just becomes subjective. You lose any lines of right and wrong. And I think this is something that we're witnessing, especially over the past few years. I think this is why people are literally having these questions around what is a man, what is a woman, what is this, what is that, does 2 + 2 = 4, does it equal 5? 10 years ago, these were not debates. I think a reason why they are is because people have lost sight of, I think that loss of spirituality has led to people thinking that they can entirely just create their own, they can kind of start from the beginning and create their whole thing again. So that's a little bit of a roundabout and indirect answer to that, but that's a theory that I'm kind of playing around with out there. And then, similar to what I said in the speech, I do think that human beings are designed to worship and to have community and to have a sense of right and wrong and to have a sense of purpose and morality and belief. And oftentimes, yes, there are exceptions, but oftentimes if you take God out of that picture, then people are left with the state. People begin to worship the government, they begin to worship the science, they begin to worship Big Pharma, they begin to worship Dr. Fauci, they begin to worship whatever is put in front of them. And I don't think that nature within human beings will ever be rooted out. I think it can be supplanted by different things, but I generally think that as a collective, people are going to look for that somewhere. Very good question.